In this video, I just want to go over what the card manager's dashboard looked like and what each of the tables is on the dashboard for the card manager. So when you first sign into the QuickBase app, you should come to this page. As a card manager, you'll always come to this home page, and it should be kind of a concise way of seeing all the activity that happens on your cards, transactions that have recently occurred, transactions you're waiting for stuff for, and so on. So as a card manager, you can actually manage multiple cards. So it doesn't just have to be one card. In this demo, I'm only managing one card. But if you were part of a research group that had multiple P cards in it, and you were in charge of submitting the justification and documentation for all of the expenses for those P cards, you would see a list of all the cards here. And this report right here is pretty nice. And you actually, when using this app, you should get a weekly subscription of this report as well. But the idea behind this report is it shows your card's activity. So it basically says how many transactions or expenses have been, are waiting for documentation. So these are expenses that have occurred recently on your P card that are sitting in your inbox in this whole dashboard that our financial office is actually waiting for you to submit justification and receipts for. The next line over here on your activity is actually the swept transactions that are waiting documentation. So these are probably older transactions that you haven't submitted yet. And again, it's just all the things that are waiting for documentation. So that's waiting for the receipt and justification to go to the financial office. As soon as you submit it, it won't appear in this activity report anymore. Moving our way over, we have same forms without without transactions. So in this app, we actually created a way for you to start a P card form or start the justification attaching a receipt before the transaction actually appears within this application. This allows you to go ahead and kind of pre-plan how you're going to submit or submit documentation for those transactions. So say you bought something and it actually takes a few days for it to appear within this inbox, but you had the receipt and you knew the justification, you wanted to kind of get ahead of the 8 ball, then you would just come in here and you could create a new P card form and give it, a nickname, and that's what will appear here. So these are just forms that are just going to appear here that are basically waiting for the transaction to still come in. So we'll go in more depth on how to do this in later videos, but that's just kind of a brief synopsis of what that is. If we move further over to the right, you'll see these 3 buttons. The first button, pretty simple, is just creating a new P card form. So this is going to be a form that you fill out for expenses where you're going to attach the justification and receipt. The next button is like archive report, and that will bring you to a list or a report of all of the P card forms, documentation, justification for things that you've submitted in this application. So it's very specific where it's anything that you submitted through this application, this QuickBase application. If you were using a different system and have recently gone into using this QuickBase tool, those forms or whatever you were using before to gather that justification and receipts will not be in that archive report. Kind of something to keep in mind. The next thing down, this is specific to DMSE, but it could be for other DLCs too, where we just have a button that brings us to the policies for our cardholders. We have a few specific policies that we are using in DMSE. So that's just a button that's going to bring you to a page of text, and it's going to show you basically, what the policies are for when you're using your P card. Okay, so that kind of covers that first line. If we move a little bit further down, you can see the next line is going to be transactions anticipating a refund. So in this app, when you're filling out the documentation in the P card form, if you're anticipating tax or you're returning something and you're anticipating a refund at all, when you're filling out the P card form, you're going to mark it as you're anticipating a refund, and then those transactions will appear here until you link it to the expense that is the refund amount. So This is basically just a little helper table that will kind of keep you organized and show you transactions that you're still waiting for a refund for. As soon as the refund has come in and you've linked it, it will disappear from this table. But until that's happened, you're just going to see a list of different of the original transactions. What the document date was, what their doc number is, a little description about them, and so on. Um, and it's just going to wait up there for you until you actually select the original link the refund transaction to it. Again, we're going to go more in depth about how to do refunds and stuff through this app in a little bit, but this is really, there's no actionables here. It's more just to keep yourself organized. Uh, and that's also very similar to this outstanding personal expenses table over here. So occasionally mistakes are made and personal expenses are made on MITP cards. And when that happens, we like to gather that information here. So again, this is basically just going to be a table. Um, and what it's going to be is your personal expenses. So if you've had any, and you're going to mark that when you're in the P card form, again, we'll go over that later videos, they'll just appear here in this table. And the only action we'll really do here is that you have to fill out a check deposit form and get that information into your financial office so that they can then, you know, take care of that personal expense. And as soon as on the financial office side, as soon as they get that check from you, they're actually going to be the ones that go through. And once the personal expense is taken care of, it will be removed automatically from this table. So again, this table is just going to hold basically information for you to see on your home screen of personal expenses that are still waiting to be processed. And if we go a little further down, so here's kind of the bread and butter of the application. This is going to be your inbox. This is going to be where you do 99% of the work. So if any transactions that come in to this application for your card, for the cards that you manage, all of those expenses and transactions will be located here. And you can see they're going to be line by line, each one of them. In this demo, there's 4 of them right now. And they're going to be kind of broken down by a few different things. The first thing is this going to be broken down by transaction type. So there's going to be refunds, international transaction fees, just plain old P card transactions, and so on. And another nice thing is that we have this little highlighting tool. So if it's swept, then it'll be marked in red. And if the P card form is in progress, so that means that if you submitted it and it was sent back to you by the financial office with comments, or if you started a P card form but you never actually submitted it, it'll appear in this report and it'll be highlighted in blue. And we're going to go more in depth into this report and how to actually use these buttons on the side over here. But the main thing here is that everything, all your to-doables should be in this inbox, really. So like you come into the app, this is more like a synopsis of where you are, kind of telling you, here's your activity, here's things you're anticipating, here's things you're waiting on. And then you scroll down here and it's going to be a list of all the expenses that have recently occurred that still need documentation. And as soon as you fill out the documentation for any one of these expenses and submit it, it's going to disappear from your inbox, meaning you don't have anything to do with it, anything more actionable to do with it. Anything that's in this inbox is waiting on you. So it's very important to keep this inbox as empty as possible. We're going to go more in depth in this in a little bit, but this is just kind of an overview of what the card manager's dashboard looks like. Thank you.